Look at here, folks. 10 pounds, 13 ounces. 29 pounds, 14 ounces.
We're at Palatka, Florida today on the historic St. Johns River for the $291,000 Bassmaster BP Top 100 tournament. Now, this four-day event pairs the top 100 pros in the nation with amateur partners. The pros fish against each other on this side, and the amateurs will be fishing in a separate division. Now, this is spawning season. This is the time the bass are moving into the shallow water. And this is when shallow water sight fishermen have the edge. This is when fishing is more like hunting. It's a start. The search is just as important as the right lure selection. And you'll see why when the Bassmasters return. So stay tuned. I'm Ray Scott, and we'll be right back from Palatka, Florida.
The St. Johns River at Palatka, Florida, and the $291,000 Bassmaster BP Top 100 tournament. There's excitement here this first morning as the 100 pro anglers and their amateur partners get ready for 4 bass-filled days of rod-to-rod competition. These Bassmasters look forward to any tournament on the St. Johns River, and particularly at this time of year, February, because this is when the big egg-laden females start toward their spawning grounds. This area is Lake George, a wide opening on the St. Johns that's historically packed with big spawning bass. Much of the fishing this time of year is done by sight, finding the beds and the bass, then anchoring or staking out and fishing for them. The most popular artificial baits are small tube lures, like the G2s, small worms or stick baits, a floating diving lure that's jerked under the surface over the beds. Reports during the 3-day practice indicated cooler weather has driven many of the bass from the beds, but they won't be far away, that's for sure. And from the bags of bass coming in this first day, it's apparent the anglers have found them, particularly Arkansas's Rob Kilby.
Look at the weight, folks. 24 pounds, 3 ounces, incredible.
Day 2, the tournament is young, and in this fishery on the St. Johns, victory is still within any angler's reach. The leader, Rob Kilby, quickly connects with a good bass, larger than the 12-inch minimum size length. Rob is fishing the Ocklawaha River, which flows into Rodman Reservoir. Rodman was created as a result of the Cross Florida Barge Canal, a project which was abandoned before completion. A lock separates Rodman from the St. Johns. From the takeoff area at Palatka to this point on the river is about an hour-and-a-half trip. Rob is fishing bedding bass with tube jigs, and so far, it's paying off. Rob Kilby isn't alone up here. Well-known Bassmasters like Shaw Grigsby and Peter Thalaveros are sharing the water. We'll see what happens. Day 2 weigh-in, and the man to watch today is Peter Thalaveros.
Pete Thalaveros is coming toward the scales with a limit. He had 23 pounds yesterday. Folks, today, look at the scale. 25 pounds, 14 ounces. There's your new leader. Bingo, folks. This is incredible. I want to show you just 2 of the fish. This man weighs 300 pounds, and these fish he doesn't do justice. Look at here, folks. Now, there's a man that knows how to catch fish.
Day 3 of the 1992 Florida Bassmaster BP Top 100. And as the sleek bass boats start their long run, it's a fact. The top 3 will be running together up the Ocklawaha because Peter Thalaveros, Rob Kilby, and Shaw Grigsby are all fishing within sight of each other. Rodman has been lowered 5 feet in a controlled drawdown, leaving mostly just river channel for several miles. It's a twisting, challenging run, and a lot of it is extremely shallow. Some of the anglers, like Shaw Grigsby, come into this shallow bay on plane through a narrow opening. Tricky running. Those who slow down pay the price. Peter T., as his friends call him, connects quickly. He's tough on this river. Shaw, too, hooks up with an Ocklawaha bass. This veteran Bassmaster is considered an expert at sight fishing bedding bass, and he learned much of it from one of the best, Guido Hibden. Shaw uses spinning tackle and light line, seldom more than 10-pound test. He also discourages hook-throwing jumps by dipping his rod deeply into the water during the fight. His sight fishing technique has helped him win 2 Bassmaster tournament titles. Whenever the Bassmaster tournament trail coincides with the spawning season, there's a good chance this Florida angler will be in the money. While Shaw was once the student, he's now the teacher. He taught Peter T. how to sight fish. And it looks like Peter T. learned his lesson well. Shaw's sight fishing technique pays off again. Not every bass on a bed will bite, but sooner or later the fish will be right. Knowing which bass is more apt to bite and spending time with it to make it bite is what makes the difference on the scoreboard. Peter T. said he's been fishing this area of Rodman since 1978. It's not a well-known area, and in fact, Peter T. thought he would have it to himself.
Nobody else would know about it.
Not.
I didn't think I'd see anybody up here for the whole tournament. And I was the last boat to get here, and much to my surprise, I saw people I really didn't want to see, the best bed fishermen around, Shaw Grigsby, to come in here and help me with these fish. So I've just been fortunate, a little more fortunate than Shaw this week, to catch a couple bigger fish.
The Bassmasters will be right back from the Ocklawaha River and the Florida Bassmaster BP Top 100. Don't go away. Peter T. connects again. Overcast conditions like today make sight fishing tough. Once a bass is located, it's usually best to stake out or anchor. It's because the target of the cast becomes more familiar and presentation is easier. And it also makes it easier for the angler to study the temperament of the bass he's fishing. The area these anglers are in is a shallow 1 to 2 feet deep flat off the river channel. Rodman and the Ocklawaha River are tremendous bass fisheries and a mecca for wildlife. But that may end. There's a drive underway to drain Rodman Reservoir and return the river to its original banks. The effect on fishing and wildlife in general could be catastrophic, according to many in the area.
That's the male.
Good job, Pete.
Now I got to catch her.
You got a lot of faith in those hooks, buddy. I'd never let them things jump. If I was in an inch of water, my rod would still be down 4 feet.
Peter T. and Shaw are buddies, and it's a long-standing relationship.
I met Shaw Grigsby at a tournament down on West Lake Toho. I walked up to him and I said, "Are you going to need a roommate for the Lanier Invitational?" And Shaw said, "Who are you?"
That was a long time ago. I remember that on the seawall.
That was the first time I talked to Shaw, and he said, "I guess so." He said, "Are you fishing those?" I said, "Yeah, I'm fishing the BASS, trying to start fishing a few of them."
That was in '84.
Yeah. And we stayed together. It was Bernie and Shaw and I bunking in a room together, for the 3 of us. And then I decided, hey, this guy's pretty good. I'll start traveling with him if he'll let me. Yeah, it worked for about, what, 3 years?
It worked for a while.
And then I started getting afraid. I couldn't keep up with him on the highway, and I snored too loud, and I stayed up too late with the TV on, and Shaw dumped me as a roommate. Well, that's all right. We're still buds, and we still catch fish together. He taught me everything I know. Guido taught me the part that he didn't teach me, and he gave me the right hooks.
That's the secret, huh?
I learned a lot from these guys.
The duel goes on as Shaw once again connects with a keeper. Some of the bass they're catching are not visible, only the bed is. The bass roam in and out of the beds. Casting into a seemingly empty bed can be productive if the fish swims back into it, which is often the case. Even though there's been over 100 pounds of bass caught out of this small bay, there's still an ample supply. And back to the leader. Of all bass fishing, this technique requires the most patience, but it can be rewarding in more ways than one.
That was a tough one.
They're hard to see, but the bass are there. Shaw is matching Peter T. bass for bass, and he may have a slight edge so far today with that first big keeper, but he's still behind. He needs a really big bite. Peter T.'s amateur partner, Larry Booker from Ohio, is hooked up with a lunker. The amateurs fish from the back of the boat. The pros run the boat and pick the fishing areas. The winning amateur for the tournament will take home a fully rigged Ranger bass boat worth $19,000. If this bass is the biggest of the day in the amateur division, Larry Bucher will earn $400. Shaw scores again. He said earlier in the day he wasn't seeing the big fish he had the first 2 days, but a solid 7-pass limit anchored by a couple of heavyweights could change the leaderboard dramatically.
Boy, I had to crush my heart if he jumped right there and then come out.
This bass came on a different lure, a stickbait. When Peter's partner hooked that last big bass, Peter quickly adapted to the situation, duplicating his partner's lure. It paid off. For many anglers, a stickbait, or jerkbait as it's often called, is a close second to the tube lure for bedding bass. Weigh-in time. Can Peter T. retain his lead?
All right, here we go. One weight, 13 pounds and 13 pounds and 2 ounces. That's it, and that's a great catch. Let's give him a nice hand, folks. That's a marvelous catch for you on the toughest circumstances.
The Bassmasters will be right back from the Florida Bassmaster BP Top 100. Stay on board. The final day of the Florida Bassmaster BP Top 100. Most of these anglers feel they're fishing for second place. That could be the case. But in Bassmaster competition, anything is possible. But from the looks of things, Peter T. is starting his day off right.
God, that's a good one. Not yet. Yeah, probably. Stay buttoned up, baby doll. If I get her up here, can you lip her? That's gonna go on this side. Yeah. Not yet. Okay. She's hooked pretty deep. That's the male. That is a male. Imagine what the female looks like. Probably. This fish wouldn't have gotten off for any reason. Lovely.
The closest challenger, Shaw Grigsby, also starts off quickly. First day leader Rob Kilby in the background is in third place, but 19 pounds behind Peter T. Shaw worked on this bass for more than 30 minutes before it's finally bit. If he's to win this tournament, he needs some real lunkers. Peter, Shaw, and Rob all said more big bass are moving into the area.
Thank you, Lord.
And here's another bass for Peter T.
There he is.
Shaw hooks up with his second pass of the morning. Light line and tube baits have been the key to this tournament. This technique may look easy, but there's more to it than meets the eye. Many anglers have a hard time mentally fishing for big bass with spinning tackle and light line. Surprisingly, though, few bass hooked this way are lost. In the spring during the spawn, if the water is clear enough to see the beds, sight fishing can be more productive than any other technique. The reason is the fisherman is not randomly casting, but rather fishing a specific fish. That's not to say every bass sighted on a bed will bite. That's where experience comes in. And here's a good example of what experience can mean.
Ooh, he made a pass at it. Oh, God. He is so angry. This may not even be a keeper fish. Ooh, he just left. He'll be back. I can see him under the boat. Here he comes. He's easing up that way. Shake, shake, shake. Shake, 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 shake. Ooh, there he is. I think you'll keep. I think you'll keep.
The final weigh-in. Peter T. comes to the scales.
Here, leading the tournament. Let's have a nice hand for Pete Talavera. Big Peter T. Peter, it is cooking at the restaurant is all over. It's time to eat.
It's time to eat. Put the fish on the scales and see what they weigh.
All right, what do you got? How many? 1, 2, 3, 4 bass for Pete Talavera in the weight, 7 pounds and 3 ounces. You got a sweat to go through.
I've got a little bit of a sweat to go through. When I left Shaw this afternoon, I had to leave out about 45 minutes earlier than I have all week long, and I caught one fish just before I left, and I saw one more that I could have caught, and you know that would have helped me. If Shaw found it, he probably caught it. So, and it looked like about a 3-pound fish, but he had 5 when I left, and he may have a limit, but he said he didn't have any good fish. Now, Shaw Bay sandbag every now and then. He's been known to do that.
You feel very confident, of course, that you've won this tournament, I presume.
The only reason I feel confident is because before I left, Shaw pulled me over to the side and shook my hand, and we talked for a couple of minutes, and he said, you better get and make the lock so you'll be safe and sure you'll be there on time.
And here's what looks to be the winning amateur stringer for Florida's Gary Bristow.
8 pounds, 7 ounces. Let's give a nice hand. There's your champion on the amateur side.
Shaw Grigsby comes in. His first stop is to greet Peter T.'s mom and dad waiting nervously on the
Here
sideline.
is Shaw Grigsby, folks, the only man who has a chance to come close to Peter T. In second place with 50 pounds yesterday. Shaw gave it his best shot, fishing against a bull of a man and a great fisherman, and I know you'll give him as much credit as he deserves and more.
Absolutely. You know, we fished basically side by side all day, and I just kept telling him to take it easy. He had it won, and to relax, because I knew he'd be pretty uptight with his first win, but he caught him.
All right, your weight, 9 pounds and 4 ounces. Well, I think that your comment to be able to fish with this kind of money, I don't know another sport, car racing, horse racing, you name it, where there's this kind of fellowship and brotherhood that goes on between men and here at these tournaments. And I can salute you for your good sportsmanship and also for your great day.
Well, I tell you what, Pete's well-deserving. It's been a long time coming for him. He's been out here a long time and had some real close tournaments like the one in Murray, which we thought he was going to win that one. So this is deserving, especially great to have him win right here in basically his backyard, his hometown.
Mom and Dad.
Well, it's final. Peter Talavera is the champion of the Florida Bassmaster BP Top 100 and $46,000 richer than he was this morning. He's joined on stage with his mom, dad, and wife. And Mrs. Talavera has a few words to say about Peter's training.
I'd like to tell y'all a story about Peter. When he graduated from Episcopal High School, I thought that it would be best if I helped him with his hobby so that he would go to college for me. So I paid tuition to JU and bought him a used bass boat from Mr. Sadowski. That was the end of the college. I was paying tuition and he was fishing.
Right now, it's time for the Pros Pointer, the how-to section of the Bassmasters. Brought to you by Wrangler, the most comfortable jeans known to man.
This is the Shaw Grigsby High Performance Hook. It's the hook that I use whenever I'm fishing a soft plastic bait, and it's the hook that I use this whole tournament to land 100% of the fish that I caught, that I hooked. The way to do it is to tie it onto your line and open up that little spring-loaded clip right there. Open it up a little wide. Take your tube bait. Just get a little tiny bite of the head. Push the bait through, the hook through the bait, and pull the eye all the way down into the tube so that you don't see it, and all that's left is that little clip that's open. Then you take that clip and tighten it down, clip it back down onto the hook. That allows your bait to stay up the whole time. It won't pull down when a fish bites it, and it won't pull down until the plastic is torn. Once a fish grabs the bait, he'll try to ball it up in his mouth, and if you've got a lot of ball of plastic around the hook, it won't come through all the time. So take it, push it all the way up through the bait so that it's all the way out. Then you can fish it two ways. You can either leave it lay flat, just like that, if you're not worried about getting it hung in any grass or any weeds, or if you have a clean bottom, or just take a little tiny pinch of the plastic and put it across the top, and that makes it completely weedless. Until the fish hits it, then it'll pop out.
What a great story, and a true bassin friendship. That's really what makes these Bassmaster BP events so worthwhile. For the pros and the amateurs, they're really how-to classes in bass fishing. Our congratulations once again to our buddy Peter T. Now next week we're going to be in Alabama for the special Eagles of Angling tournament. 10 two-man pro teams and their amateur partners fish on a 10-hole course on a 55-acre lake that I designed back in my hometown of Tyndall, Alabama. Our Bassmaster cameras will follow all the action. Besides the top pros, President George Bush will be in attendance as a competitor as well. You join us. For the Bassmasters, I'm Ray Scott, and we'll see you next week.